Hi everyone, welcome to this video on SQLAlchemy. In this video, I'm going to be talking about SQLAlchemy, and I'm going to be starting by talking about the SQLAlchemy Core. SQLAlchemy basically has two major components, and this includes the SQLAlchemy Core as well as the SQLAlchemy ORM. The SQLAlchemy Core is what allows us to basically use Python to write SQL statements, or it is what we refer to as the SQL toolkit that enables us to write Python to basically express SQL. And we also have the ORM part that helps us to map our database tables as classes and basically call many methods to help us to query, to delete, to update, and to carry out most required functionalities that we may need on our database. Now, without further ado, let me get started by installing SQLAlchemy in a virtual environment right here. So I have a very simple setup right here. I have Visual Studio Code. I'm going to begin by, first of all, creating a virtual environment, installing SQLAlchemy, and we shall begin by creating a simple connection to a simple database. Now to do that, I'm going to get started by opening up a terminal right here. Now I'm using Git Bash on Windows. Feel free to use anything you may want. So here I'm just going to begin by running Python. So I'll keep it simple. Just run Python -m venv, and in this case I'll call our virtual environment env. So that will create this simple folder right here called env, and that is where our virtual environment is going to be. So once this folder has been created, the next thing we shall do is to activate it and then install SQLAlchemy. Now that our virtual environment has been installed, let us go ahead and activate it with source env. Now in this case we are on Windows, so we shall call our activate script within our scripts folder, and then we shall call activate. So this is going to go ahead and activate our virtual environment. After installing our virtual environment and activating it, we're going to go ahead and install our SQLAlchemy. So I'll say pip install SQLAlchemy. And this is going to allow us to install SQLAlchemy, which is the latest, and this will also be separate from our system-wide installations of any SQLAlchemy that we may have on our system. Now that our SQLAlchemy has been installed, let us check the version that we've been able to install on our system. So what I'm going to do is to create a simple file right here, and I'm going to call this our connect.py. And inside connect.py, I'm going to begin by checking the version of SQLAlchemy. So for me to do that, I'll begin by saying import. And in this case, we shall begin by importing SQLAlchemy. And once we've been able to import our SQLAlchemy, I'm just going to come and say print. And in this case, we shall basically print our SQLAlchemy version. So I'll say SQLAlchemy dot dash dash. And this is going to be our version. So once we have that, then we can run this file. So I'll control my terminal with Control and L. So let me push this a little bit down right here. So just going to reduce the size of this. So if we go ahead and run this, so if I say Python connect.py, we're now going to see that our SQLAlchemy version is going to be SQLAlchemy 2.0.12. So this is basically the latest version of SQLAlchemy that we're going to be following through with this video. So after us being able to confirm that we've installed SQLAlchemy 2.0, now we're going to go ahead and create a dummy connection to our database. So SQLAlchemy allows us to work with mostly relational databases. And by relational databases, we mean those databases that help us to create database tables which have rows and columns. And we can also have different relationships across these tables, as we're going to see in our examples. So let's go ahead and create a connection to our database. Now, the way SQLAlchemy allows us to create a connection is through the engine object. So this engine object allows us to specify the database that we're going to connect to, its drivers, and wherever it's going to be. Now I'm going to get rid of the statement that we have right here, and what I'm going to do is to go ahead and import our create engine function, because this function is what will actually allow us to create our engine object. So what I'm going to do is to say from SQLAlchemy, we are going to go ahead and import our create engine function. So I basically import create engine, and once we've been able to create our engine, I'll just come and say engine, and our engine is going to be equal to our create engine function. So once we've been able to call our create engine function, we need to provide some arguments to this function, and the most important argument to this function is always going to be the URL to our database. Now in this case, we're going to use a very simple SQLITE database, but the way to connect is not different from any other databases such as MySQL or Postgres. So what I'm going to do is to come right here, and I'll provide our URL. Now to connect to SQLITE, all we have to do is to define the database. In this case, it's SQLITE, and then we shall have to define the path where we want it. But since we want it to be in our current folder, remember SQLITE is an in-memory database, and we don't actually need any drivers to use SQLAlchemy with Python, because Python has an inbuilt driver for SQLITE. So what we can do is to just basically provide ///, meaning that we want our database to be in our current folder. And then right here, we may want to say site, or let's just call it sample.db. Now this syntax may work for some, while others may have to specify where they want their database to be. But all this does is to just allow us to create our sample database, which is going to be an SQLITE database inside our current project folder. Now that we've been able to do this, we shall also provide one other important argument, and that is going to be our echo attribute. So this echo argument or attribute is going to allow us to basically print out or log any SQL that will be done in case we carry out a transaction, or basically when we query our database. So in this case, shall say echo is going to be equal to true. Now, the thing with SQLAlchemy is SQLAlchemy won't be able to use this engine variable unless you call it. So even when you create this engine with our create engine function, we're not actually yet establishing any connection to our database. And if we're to basically make a connection and use it, we'll only have to use it when we want to add or select or be able to query for something in our database. Now let's go ahead and use our engine to create a connection and test whether we can really connect to our database. Now I'm going to be using the with statement to allow us to create an object that will allow us to make some connection to our database. So I'm going to start by saying with, and in this case, we are going to call our engine object. So when you have our engine object, you can be able to call the connect function. And when you have this connect function, we can basically call it a connection. So that's basically going to hide our connect object within a variable called const. So this is just the with statement. And in there, we can be able to connect and execute basically some simple SQL. So in this case, we're going to call our connection object.execute. And in here, we're going to need a statement. So for us to execute a statement, we're also going to need the text function that comes from SQLAlchemy, as this will allow us to translate our string or our text into a valid SQL statement that this connection object is going to execute. Now I'll begin by going ahead and importing that. So I'll go at the top where we imported our create engine, and then I'll say text. So I'll come and say connection to execute, and then I'll provide text, and in here we shall provide a very simple statement. Now what I'm going to do is to provide a simple select. So I'll say select, and in this case I'll say select let's just say select hello world. So in this case I'll just say select hello, and once we've been able to do this, I'll close, and then once we've been able to do that, then I'll just go ahead and basically run, or we can even hide this within a result variable. So let's just hide it within a result, and since this is a select, we can expect to basically print the results out. So what we can do is to just come and say print result dot all, and this will go ahead and print all the rows that will be returned from this select statement. I'm going to pull up my terminal right here, and I'm going to pull up a little bit. So in here, I'll just come and say Python connect.py, and now we shall see that it's going to go ahead and first of all execute all the SQL that we basically provided within our connection.execute right here. So what it will do is to go ahead and begin and then select hello, just like you see right here, and then it will return for us the rows. Since we basically printed this as a result, then we call .all, it will return a list of all the queries for that specific query that we've carried out. So we've been able to basically create a simple connection to a database and also be able to make use of that simple connection to carry out a simple query. Now the next thing we're going to do is to look at how the SQLAlchemy Core allows us to create tables and how we can be able to create, read, update, and delete database records from those tables. So let's go ahead and look at that. Now that we've established a connection to our database, let us go ahead and try to create tables using our connection object or our engine variable that we've created. So to do that, let's go ahead and create another module or file, and we're going to call this our tables. It's actually going to be tables.py. Inside tables.py, we're going to create tables, and these tables are going to have some sort of relationship, and it will help us to basically explore and see how SQLAlchemy will handle the table creation for us. Now, for us to be able to create any table in the SQLAlchemy using SQLAlchemy Core, we shall need to access the table class and then create objects of this table class that will basically represent a table in our database. So to begin, let's begin by first of all modeling the tables that we want to actually create. Now I'm going to use a very simple example right here, and feel free to use any other example, but this is going to be a very simple example of a one-to-many relationship. So right here, I'm going to basically model two tables. So one is going to be for users and another one is going to be for comments or reviews. So let's just think of an application where we have users leaving reviews or comments about an event or about any book or about anything. Now, in this case, we shall have two tables. Now, I'm just going to write one docstring right here, and this is where I'm going to do my modeling. So instead of having the summary, I'll just delete what I have. Now, let me model this. So we shall have the users table. And in this table, we expect that we shall have an ID. So the ID is basically going to be the primary key or the unique identifier for each of the users. And then you shall have user information such as the name, which shall be a string. We may have, let's say, a full name, which is also going to be a string. And then we may maybe keep their email addresses. And once we've been able to do that, then we can also go ahead and create the review table. Now, since these two tables are going to be connected to each other via a relationship, we expect to have a foreign key. So what I'm going to do is to first of all model this. So I'll say that this is going to be comments. Let's actually just call it a comments table. And once we've called it a comments table, we are going to provide the different attributes. So here we shall have our ID, and this ID will be a primary key. Now we expect that we shall have the comment or the text that some user has provided to explain what the event was like or what the post was about. In this case, shall just basically call it a comment, and this will also be a string or text. Then, since these are related, we shall expect to have a foreign key. Now we shall call this our user ID, and this is basically going to be an integer which shall refer to our primary key in the table of our users right here. So we're just going to basically represent it in users.id, and we're going to see how easy SQLAlchemy will make it for us to basically express this in terms of Python. So to begin, we shall need to create our table objects. So we're going to begin by importing our table class from SQLAlchemy. Now go at the top right here and then say from SQLAlchemy, we are going to go ahead and import, sorry for that. So this will be import our table. And once we've been able to import our table class, now we're going to go ahead and create our table objects. So to begin, we're going to begin by our user table. So in this case, shall say that our users table, and this is actually going to be a table object. And we can also go ahead and do the same thing for our comments table. So I'll just come and say comments, and this will be table, and this is going to also be our comments table. And once you've been able to do this, now let's go ahead and provide the different attributes that the table objects may need to have. Now, for us to be able to create any sort of table in SQLAlchemy, we need to provide what is called a metadata object. Now, through this metadata object, we actually go ahead and define what our database schema is going to be about, the structure of our tables. And we shall look at how useful this will be when we're actually creating these tables within our database. So to begin, we're going to first of all also import the metadata class, and then we're going to create the metadata object, which we shall then add to our tables so that we describe the structure of these tables. So I'm going to go ahead and import one extra class, and this is going to be our metadata class. Once we've been able to import our metadata class, we're going to come right here and then say that our metadata object is going to be equal to our metadata object instance, or basically an object of type metadata. Now, once we've been able to do that, then in here, we are going to go ahead and provide the different attributes that our tables may have. Now, in VS Code, if you want to basically get more explanations about how a certain class works, you can hover over that specific attribute or that specific class, and then you'll be able to see the documentation, what it says about it. So in here, when you're creating a table, we need a name for that specific table, which is going to be a string. We need the metadata object. We also need arguments, which are basically the schema items, or call them the columns. And we're going to look at how we can form this. So to begin, we're going to begin by providing our name. Now we're going to call our users table, our users as the name of the table itself in our database. And then we shall follow by providing our metadata object. So we're going to come and provide our metadata object just like we created it right here. Now, after creating that, we are now going to go ahead and define columns onto our table. Now, the interesting thing about SQLAlchemy Core is it also provides for us the column class that allows us to basically define columns on our database table and also define their types as well as some other attributes that may exist on these database tables. Now, we're going to go at the top and also import our column. So just going to come and say import column. So after importing column, we're now going to create our first column on our specific table, which is our users table. So in this case, shall come and say column, and this column is also going to have the first attribute being the name. So we're going to have the name. We should also have the different other things or the different other attributes that we may need to add to it. So let's first give it a name. Now this is going to be our ID. And this ID is also going to have a type, which is going to basically specify which type of data we shall keep in this column. Now to keep this simple, let us just save our data as integers. So SQLAlchemy will also provide for us the integer type. Now I'm just going to make this simple by coming and saying from SQLAlchemy, we are then going to import our type. So let's begin with our integer. So after importing our integer, I'll come down right here and then I'll provide our integer. And once we've been able to provide our integer, we do not actually need to make an object out of it. As long as we provided the class, then that will be fine. Another thing we may want to do is to specify this to be a primary key to that table. So if we want to do that, we may say that our primary key is going to be equal to true, meaning that this will be the unique identifier for every row that will exist in the user table. So let's go ahead and add other columns. Now we have the one for name, which is going to be our string. So let's add the one for our name. So shall say that we're going to have a column which is going to be our name, and this name is going to be a string. So what we shall do is to also import the string type. So shall say from SQLAlchemy import string, and then right here shall come and say that we are actually going to have our string. Now if we want to provide things such as the length of the string, then we may need to create an instance of the string class and then provide the length. Now let's say the length of this name is going to be 25, and if we want to provide other constraints such as nullable, we can say nullable equals false, and what that basically means is this is not to be left null, or when you're inserting, we do not need to leave it as null. Another thing we want to do is to provide the full name column. So for us to do that, we shall basically come in here and say column, and this is going to be our full name. So it's actually going to be full name. So the full name is going to be, we can call it text or string. Let's actually try to do it differently. So we can basically go ahead and import our text, and then we can just come right here and say that our full name is going to be our text. And once we've been able to do that, then we can basically finish creating our users table just like we've done right here. So we haven't yet established any kind of relationship between these two tables, but we're going to look at how we are going to do that. So next thing we're going to do is to define the attributes that belong to our comments table, or the structure of our comments table. Now let's do that. The first thing we shall do is to provide our name. So this is going to be comments, and after providing our comments, shall add our metadata object, and then we shall define our columns. Now since our ID column is going to be identical to the one we have in our users, we shall just copy that and then paste it right here. So we already have our primary key right here. Another thing we're going to do is to basically specify the comment column. So we expect that to be text, so we're also going to add that. So I just come and say column, and this is going to be our comment, and this comment is going to be text. Then we shall basically provide a nullable equals false, because we do not want them to submit a blank comment. So once we've been able to do that, then we need to provide our user ID. So the user ID is the column which we specified that's going to be a foreign key to our user ID. So for us to do that, I'll just come right here and say column, and this column is going to be our user ID column. So once we have this, then we shall provide the type. So this type is going to be a foreign key. So when we're providing a foreign key, we do not actually need to provide integer type. For as long as it's a foreign key, all we need to do is to provide the foreign key class and then provide that specific column which it references. So let's go ahead and import the foreign key class. It also comes from SQLAlchemy. So I'll just come and say from SQLAlchemy we shall import our foreign key. So once we've been able to do that, we shall just come and provide our foreign key. And then here, what we need to do is to provide the column which we point back to. So in this case, our column is going to be users, which is our table for users, dot ID. So shall come right here and then provide our users dot ID. So once we've been able to do that, then the next thing to do is going to be for us to create this table, or this sets of tables, or this set of tables within our database. Now for us to be able to do that, we're going to be using our meta object, or our metadata object. And the reason as to why that happens is this metadata object is going to keep the information about all the tables that we have right here. And then when we use this metadata object with the engine variable we created right here, we shall be able to form database tables from our database, and then we shall be able to carry out the different things that we shall need on our database. So let's go ahead and try to do that. So for us to begin, what we're going to do is to go ahead and basically create another file. So just going to create a file here, going to call it createdb.py. And once I've created db.py, then in this case, what we shall do is to go ahead and basically call our engine. So I'm just going to come and say from connect, we shall import our engine. And once we've been able to import our engine, let's go ahead and also import stuff that we shall need to create our database. So we're going to go ahead and access our tables. So I'll say from tables, we are going to import our users tables and also our comments table. We shall also import our meta object because it's what's going to allow us to basically create our database. So what we can do is to just maybe write a simple string right here. So shall say creating database, and then here we shall just call our meta object, and then we say dot create all. So when you say create all we need to do is to bind this to an engine. So the reason as to why this is being called is because all our tables were created using that meta object right here. So if you go ahead and call that specific meta object with create all, and then we bind it to the engine, it will know that we are basically creating our tables in whatever database we specified when creating that specific engine right here. So if you go ahead and say create all, then all we shall have to do is provide the bind attribute, and then we shall specify that this is bind to our engine. So if we save and we try to run this, say Python create, so this is actually going to be createdb.py, we shall now see that our database is going to be created. Now the beauty with this is, as long as you have the echo attribute set, so we actually set it in our connect right here, as long as you have it set to true, you'll be able to see all the SQL that will be taking place when you run this code. Now let's try to investigate and see what exactly happened. So what happened is, when you called our create all function, the print statement was executed just like we wanted it, and then SQLAlchemy went ahead to check if the information for the tables that we created actually exists, and that's why you see this begin implicit and then pragma, basically main.table info users. This is basically a statement to check if the information is valid or if it exists, the information that forms the table like the way we want it. And then as long as it exists, then we go ahead and also check if the comments exist, and then once it exists, then the database tables are going to be created just like you see right here. And this is the SQL that goes ahead to create these database tables. So this is the one for creating our users tables, and this is the one for creating our comments table, just like you see right here. So for us to be able to see this with our eyes, I'm going to be using a tool or a GUI tool called DB Browser for SQLITE 3. So I'm going to open it right here. So I'll say I'm actually going to open it. So I'm going to open it here on the second screen, and then I'll go ahead and basically push it right here. So this is the DB Browser for SQLITE. I'll make sure I leave a link to the in the description so that you guys can check it out, install it, and then basically see the database that we've created. So what I'll do is to go ahead and open our database. So I think our database is on, I think it's the one here. So I'll open it up. And when I open, you now see this is not actually the real database we've created, but if I open this up, I think I put it here. This is not the one. Let me try to see where this is. So we try to see where I put this. So if I try to look, so it's encoding SQLAlchemy Core. Good. So if I try to open my DB browser, if I open our database and then go to our documents, and within our documents, see, can see our SQLAlchemy Core and in our sample.db file, which is basically our database file. When you open it, you now see that the tables that we've created are the ones that we have right here. So we have our comments table and we also have our users table. So if we try to investigate, we now see that our columns have been created right there. We also see that our columns have been created just like we see right here. But for now, we have not yet inserted any data, or we haven't been able to do anything specific to CRUD on our simple database. And we're going to look at exactly how we do that. Alright, so let's just insert some data into our database tables. So we're going to begin by using a special function that SQLAlchemy Core provides for us, and that is the insert function. So the insert function will basically take in the table, and then using that table object, or the table object like the ones we've created right here, we can be able to insert the values. So what we do is to just create an insert statement, provide our table, and then we provide the values that we want to insert into that table. So let's go ahead and create a simple file right here. So I'm going to call this insert, or let me actually call it inserting.py. So inside inserting.py, I'm going to begin by importing our insert function. So I'll say from SQLAlchemy, we shall import our insert. And once we've been able to import our insert, so that's going to be with a lowercase I, then we shall also have to import the table that we want to insert into. So in this case, I'm going to begin by accessing our tables module, and from our tables module, I'm going to go ahead and import our users table. So for now, let's just deal with the users table. So right after we've been able to do that, then we can go ahead and insert into our user table by first of all creating an SQL statement. Now with SQL Core, what we do is to create statements, and then we basically run those statements so that we come up with real SQL, and then we run that SQL onto our database. So I'm going to create a variable called our statement, and this statement is going to be what will be got from our insert. So we're going to formulate a statement from insert. So this will take in the table just like you see right here, and that table is going to be our users table. So once we've been able to do that, then we need to go ahead and basically see what this is going to provide for us. So if we save and go ahead and print, so let's just print it out for now and see what it shall return. If I pull up my terminal and run Python inserting.py, we shall see that this is actually going to provide for us an SQL statement that is just to help us to insert into our users table the following values. So it inserts the ID, the name, and the full name, and then it will also provide for us the values just like you see right here. So given such a statement, we can be able to provide actual values, and then we can be able to basically go ahead and insert data or records into our database table. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you wanted to go ahead and maybe provide values, so what you can do is to actually say dot, then shall access the values method, and when you access this values method, now we can go ahead and provide the different fields. So let's begin by inserting a name. So let's begin by providing our name. Now in this name, let's say we are going to provide a simple name of Jonah, and then in here we shall also provide a full name. So let me actually pull this down so that you guys can see it well. So in here we can have our full name, and let's say this full name is going to be Sally Jonathan. So once we've been able to do this, then all we need to do for this statement to actually occur, or for this statement to actually do something to our database, we need to make use of our connection object, and then which is actually our engine object, to create a connection to it, and then we run this statement on our connection. So for us to do that, I'll go ahead and import it. So I'll say from our connect module, we are going to go ahead and import what we called our engine object. So using this engine object, we are still going to use our with statement. So I come and say with, and in this case shall say with engine dot connect. So shall call our connect method, and then we shall call this as our connection object. So once we've been able to call this as our connection object, the next thing is going to be for us to execute that statement over our connection. So we shall call connection.execute, and in this case we shall provide our SQL statement. Now in this case we do not need to provide it as text, because in this case it's actually something that has already been made into text that SQLAlchemy will understand. So in this case, when we execute our statement, we also need to go ahead and commit this so that our data is actually saved to our database. So for us to do that, we can say con.commit. And when you do that, then we expect that this is actually going to go ahead and add our data into our database. So let's go ahead and try to do this. So if we save and pull up our terminal, so I'm going to rerun python inserting.py. So if we enter, we shall now see that it will begin by selecting hello. This is actually coming from where we created our engine object. So when you go to connect and you get rid of this statement of basically running this all the time, so I'll basically comment it out. So what will happen is it's going to go ahead and insert into our users table, just like you see right here. And in the values it will insert are the name that we provided, which is Jonah, and then it will also provide the full name, just like you see it right here. So if you go ahead and see this in our database, so we're going to go back to our browser right here. Right now we see our table, but if you refresh, we see that an entry or a user has been inserted into our table. So this basically works fine. However, if you wanted to modify this to provide more users, then what we could do is to provide multiple arguments. So let's go ahead and look at that. So if you go ahead to our inserting.py, so what we've done here is to basically make use of the insert statement and then provide values. But what if we did not want to provide values? What we would do is to go ahead and remove this values call, and after calling it, it will basically be inserting into the users table. But still on our connection object, all we have to do is to call the statement, and then we'll provide an extra attribute here. So that's going to be our list of parameters. So this parameter is going to be the specific data that we want to enter into our database. Now in this case, what I have to do is to provide dictionaries, and these are going to be the specific mappings for the specific records that we want to insert into our table. So let's begin by providing, so I'm going to provide the name. So this is actually going to be, let's say, name is going to be Joe, and then we can have our full name, and this is actually going to be a string. So let me correct this. So our full name in this case, sorry for this, so shall have our full name, and our full name is going to be, let's say, Joe Biden, and then we can also have another entry. So this is actually going to be a name, and our name in this case will be, let's say, so looking for it to put this right, so this is actually going to be Sponge. And then here we can have the full name. So I'm just going to provide our full name, and this full name is going to be Sponge Bob. So once you've been able to do this, then what you shall have is this statement taking in all these params and then inserting them into our database. So if we go ahead and run again, so I pull up my terminal and run, we shall see that our insert statement is going to be run with the following values. And if we go back to our DB browser right here, we shall now see that all these records are being inserted into our very simple database, which is actually working. Now the next thing we're going to look at is how we can basically select or basically retrieve all these items from our database. Now that we've been able to insert some data into our database tables, let us look at how we can retrieve that data. So for us to be able to retrieve the data, we are also provided for the select statement that allows us to formulate select statements, just like we're going to see. So to keep things simple, I'm going to keep everything within a separate module, and you can be able to check that out. The link will be provided in the description. So I'll just come right here, create the selecting. So this will be selecting.py. And once we provide selecting.py, then we shall need to access what we need. So let's begin by importing our table. So shall say from tables, we shall import our users table, just like you see right there. Then we shall also need our engine object. So I'll say from connect, we are going to import, it's going to be import, and then we shall import our engine. And after importing our engine, then the next thing we're going to do is to basically go ahead and import our select statement. So I'll say from SQLAlchemy, we shall import our select. So it's actually going to be our select function. So let's try to create a statement for selecting. So for us to do that, we shall say statement, and our statement is going to be a call to our select function. Now, when you have this select function, you have to provide a table that you're actually going to select from. So if we say select from users table, let's see what this is going to generate for us. So I'm just going to call a simple print statement right here. If we go ahead and run this, let's see what's going to return. So if I say Python selecting.py, we shall now see that it's going to actually return a select statement that's going to select all the columns that we have on our users table, just like you see right here. Now, if we want to basically go ahead and run this on our database, then we need to create a connection to our database, just like we did for inserting. So what I'm going to do is to come right here, and what I'll do is to say with, and in this case, we shall do the same thing with engine.connect. And this is actually going to be a call to the connect method. So shall call this our connection. Then we shall create a result. So this result is going to be like a list of rows. And from this list of rows, we shall be able to loop through and then do whatever we want to do with the data that we will have retrieved from this query. So in this case, we shall say con.execute. And in this case, what we need to do is to basically provide some statements or some statements. So actually the statement is going to be our statement, just like the one you see right here. Now that this is going to be a result or basically a list of the data that we want, we can run a simple for loop. So we can say for row in results. So in here, I can say for row in result. Then we can print the different data. So we can access it via print. Let's just print row and see what this will return. So if we try to run this, if I pull up our terminal and then run python select.py, we shall see that it's now going to basically go ahead and print out the ID, the name, as well as the full name of every data that we'll have in our table, just like you see in our browser right here. So if we wanted to modify this to access our different data or our individual data, what we can do is to maybe provide this, let's say, as a string. So can make this, let's say, user, and then let's say username is going to be equal to. So here we shall say row dot name, and then we can also provide our, so in this case we can maybe say that our full name, and our full name in this case is going to be our row dot full name. So once we've been able to do that, if I save and run our code again, we shall see that it's actually going to bring out our results, just like you see them right here. Now, this is not the only way we can select. We can also decide to select where we have a certain condition. For example, we want to select a user who has a specific name, and that's where the where clause comes in. So by using our select statement right here, we are basically selecting for all the columns that we have on our database table. However, if we want to specify some condition like select from our table where we have a certain statement being this, or where a certain criteria has to be met, then that's where the select clause comes in. So the select clause is one that we shall call on our select function, just like you see right here. So let's say in our users wanted to access the user with the name of Joe, then we'll have to use our select with where. So let's see how we can do that. So if we come right here and then we say select users tables, then in here, if we wanted to access, let's actually first look at how we can access our database columns. So I'll comment this out right here. So let me show you how we can access our columns without having to actually run our code. So if in case we wanted to access a certain column on our database table, then that would be as easy as saying print. So let's say our users table is one that we've created with our SQLAlchemy Core. So this users table is a table object. If we wanted to access a column such as the name column, then we'd access that by accessing a certain attribute called C. And then on C, then you have to specify the name of that specific attribute. So let's say the name. If we save and try to run this, we'll see that that's now going to return the column, which is users.name. If we wanted to do the same thing for our full name, then that will actually be our full name. So let me try this for the full name column as well as the ID column. So if we go ahead and run, you'll now see that this is going to give us access to the different columns, just like we wanted them on our database table. Now, this is the same syntax that we are going to actually use when using the where clause. So let me remove this and then I'll uncomment what we have here. So if I go ahead and uncomment this, now we are going to be able to run our select with a special where clause. So in this case, what we need to do is to select from the users table, and what we need to do is to access that specific row that has data that matches a specific condition. Now in this case, let's say dot where, and in this case we need to provide the condition. So the condition may be something like users table dot c dot, let's say, name, and we want to check for that column that has the name equaling to, let's say, Joe. So if we try to select this, this will only return that specific column that has the name being Joe. So if we pull up our terminal and run again, we shall see that this is actually going to return only the user whose name is Joe, and it will also return the attribute for their full name, which is Joe Biden. So this is basically one way in which you can select and then select for different conditions, just like you see right here. Now, similar to inserting as well as selecting items from our database, we can also go ahead and update as well as delete items from our database. Let's look at how we can do that. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead and create, so I'll create a new file and I'll call this new file, so let me call it updating. So it's going to be where we're going to update our data from. So I'll say updating.py, and right after updating we're going to delete. So let me begin by doing what we did here. So I'll just copy what we have here and paste it in here. So instead of select, we are now going to go ahead and try to update. So I'll import the update function. So this will also allow us to come up with a statement, and this statement will allow us to update our database records. So let's go ahead and look at how we can do that. So similar to what we did, I'll just create a statement right here, and this is going to be update. And in this case, what we do is to provide the table. So in this case, it's going to be our users table. But after providing the table, we didn't need to provide what fields or which specific record we want to go ahead and update. Now that's where the where clause will come in. So we shall have to access that specific column we want to update. So if we, let's say, try to update that user with the name of Joe to a specific other name, then we can do that by providing users table dot c. That's how we access the column. and in this case it's going to be our name, where the name is going to be Joe, and then we shall provide dot values. So in this case we are going to provide the arguments for the name, or for that specific name. Now if we want to update this, we can say dot values, then we can provide, let's say, our name, and let's say we want to call this name Jerry. So let's go ahead and print out this statement and see what it's going to return. So if we say print and then our statement and pull up our terminal, so in this case we're going to run python updating.py, and then we are now going to see that it's going to be an update set statement, but that's going to work in a way that it's going to update our users, and it's going to set the name to a specific name where our user's name will be the specific name we have provided, just like you see right here. Now let's go ahead and put this into effect. So the way we're going to do that is by basically coming right here, and then we shall use our connection. So we shall say with engine dot connect as, so in this case it's going to be our connection. Then what we need to do is to go ahead and execute this. So we shall say con dot execute, and then we shall execute our statement, and then we shall commit. So if we say con dot commit, then this will go ahead and save our updated user with our updated record. So if we go ahead and try to run this, so I'm just going to come right here and run. So one thing we did is not to call this function, and that's why we're getting that error of method object does not support the context manager protocol. So if we provide this as engine.connect without having to call a connect function, then that's the error we expect to get into, because the connection variable is only created within the context of this with statement. So if we go ahead and run this, we're now going to see that our user is going to be updated. So if we went ahead to our database browser right here and refreshed, we now see that our user has been changed from Joe to Jerry, just like you see right here. So that means our update is now working. Now deleting is also similar to this. So if we wanted to delete, what we have to do is to go ahead and create our file. So I'll say deleting.py, and I'll do the same thing. So instead of updating, we shall basically delete. So we shall have the same statements in here. So I'll just come and say update and then delete. So we shall create a statement. So our statement is going to be very simple. So here we're going to say that our statement is going to be delete. Then we shall have our specific table. So in this case, it's going to be our users table. Then you can also specify a column. So we can say dot where, and then in here we can say we want to delete that specific table where the name is equal to, let's say, Jerry, the one we've actually just updated, and then that will basically get rid of that specific table. So if we go ahead and run this, so we can call our connections, we can say with engine dot connect, and this will be our connection. So we shall say as connection, then we want to say con dot execute, and then we shall execute our statement. So here we can basically say con dot commit, and this will be enough for us to go ahead and delete that specific row. So if we run our code and say python deleting, so that will go ahead and delete from our users table where the user's name is Jerry. And if we go ahead and see right here in our database, if we refresh, shall see that we've got rid of that specific user called Jerry. In this video, I've been able to walk you through the basics of using the SQLAlchemy Core. Now keep in mind that this is the first video I'm making about this specific version of SQLAlchemy 2.0. I'm going to make another video where I'll be walking through the same steps, but I'll be using the SQL or SQLAlchemy ORM, which is basically one way in which we use a class-based object-oriented way to manipulate data within our database. I hope to see you in that video. Please leave a like and don't forget to share this video. Without wasting your time, let me say I'll see you in the next video. Bye.